coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere.
Welcome back, my friends and my fellow Americans, to my show, where we're going to interview another military veteran who's going to talk to you about their life in the military, so that you can learn a little bit about what military life is like through the words of the people who served. My guest today was a member of the 1st Infantry Division during the Vietnam War. The 1st is known as the Big Red One. The 1st was formed on June 18th in 1917, just as America joined World War I. The 1st sailed over to France in that June and landed there. The 16th Infantry Regiment, a part of that division, marched through Paris to bolster the sagging morale of the French people who were in misery over how long the war had taken. When that unit stopped at the tomb of Lafayette, Colonel Charles Stanton spoke these words, "Lafayette, we are here." The 21st Regiment captured the town of Cantigny and became known as the Lions of Cantigny. The soldiers of the 1st fought in the Battle of Soissons, Saint-Mihiel, the Meuse-Argonne, and were the first units to cross the Rhine into Germany. Members of that unit won 5 Medals of Honor. During World War II, the 1st landed in French North Africa, fought through Tunisia, and landed at Sicily. Units of the division also landed at the Normandy beachhead on D-Day. They fought across France, fought in the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest, and moved to support the units lost in Bastogne. They crossed the Rhine River and partially was able to free Czechoslovakia. 17 members of that division received the Medal of Honor. During the Vietnam War, the division was in country from 1965 to 1970. They were fighting during the Tet Offensive and defended Tan Son Nhut Air Base. They were involved in many actions and battles. 11 members of the division received the Medal of Honor, and the division has been involved in fighting in the Desert Storm and in different battles in Iraq and Afghanistan. 2 of those members received the Medal of Honor. I mention the Medal of Honor because it is the highest medal for bravery. But thousands have died, and even more have been wounded wearing the Big Red One patch. To them, we owe honor and respect. My guest today, Mary Terry Vorderer, a Vietnam Army veteran, served in the U.S. Army from 1967 to 68 as a combat engineer in the 1st Infantry Division. He is a lifelong Oak Lawn, Illinois resident. He's been married for 56 years and has 2 adult children and 4 grandchildren. After his honorable discharge, he entered the Oak Lawn Police Department as a patrolman. He received several promotions and retired as Chief of Patrol. He is a graduate of Brother Rice High School. He has degrees from Governor State and Moraine Valley Community College with honors and named Alumni of Fame. He is the owner of Clean Now Carpets, Golf View and Chalet Drive Apartments, and Ridge Vending Company. He is also the founder and first president of the Oak Lawn Supervisors Association. The offices he held are Oak Lawn Park Commissioner, Oak Lawn 4th District Trustee, and he was elected to mayor of Oak Lawn in 2021 to the present. He is involved with several charitable organizations, including the Oak Lawn VFW, Chicago Ridge American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, and several others. His commendations from the Army include the Army Commendation Medal, Vietnam Cross of Gallantry, Vietnam Service Vietnam Campaign Medal, and Good Conduct Medal. Thank you, Terry, for coming on my show.
Thank you, Jim. It's always a pleasure.
Good. You were deployed to Vietnam. Was there training given to you before you went?
Well, I think basic training, very much basic training. And I was originally given an MOS as a welder. I was being trained in civilian life after graduating high school. And after basic training, they sent me to Fort Belvoir, Virginia for some additional training. After that, I was sent to Vietnam, okay, as a welder with the 1st Infantry Division, Combat Engineer Division. However, when I got there was no use for a welder. I think it was a little bit of dysfunctional. So I became a kind of a, for lack of a better word, a jack of all trades. I not only was an infantry guy supporting, okay, operations of the engineers for security through the jungles. I also was a truck driver. I drove a wrecker, a crane, a bulldozer. So I got a lot of experience in Vietnam, from combat to equipment operations.
When you went to Vietnam, how did you get there first, and what were your thoughts when you got there?
Well, when I got assigned to Vietnam in 1967 was really beginning to become a controversial war. But my dad was a World War II veteran, and I wanted to live up to my duties, of course.
Understood.
So I went. Okay, I can remember when I was left out of California. I think I flew to Hawaii for some refueling. The whole airplane, by the way, was military. And they wouldn't let us off the airplane because they felt that we wouldn't probably get back on. It was about 1 in the morning. And then we flew on to the Philippines and then on to Vietnam. I can remember a couple of things on that flight. I remember looking down at the ocean and running through my mind. At that time, I was about 19 years old, thinking, I'm going to war. And the only thing I knew about war, okay, was what I saw on TV, combat engines. So anyway, there were stewardesses. They were American ladies, stewardesses, that were on that flight. It was a commercial airplane. And one of them must have saw me a little bit worried, looking down, and sat down next to me, held my hand, and comforted me a little bit. And that was a pleasant experience, having somebody understand you. And then I can remember landing in the airport, and as we landed, I looked, and the whole sides of the runways had sandbags and machine guns. And I thought to myself, I'm in war.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my first experience there.
You were attached to the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. Where were you sent?
Well, originally, after getting off to the airplane, okay, there's a couple of days where they indoctrinate you there, and then they helicoptered me to the base camp of the 1st Infantry Division, engineer thing. I came in on a Sunday, okay, and the company was out in the jungles on an operation at that time. Vietnam at that time was all tents. I mean, eventually they became more wooden structures, but when I got there, it was all tents. And I reported to the headquarters company. There was 2 guys in there. And I remember there was a dog, a rabid dog. They thought it was rabid. And I had to stand and watch him shoot that dog. And I'm a real animal lover, and it wasn't a clean kill, screaming and hollering. I thought, another tragic part of that thing. So they sent me down to Tent 5. I get down to Tent 5. There's one guy in Tent 5, okay, and he's sitting on his bunk. Okay, he's got a steel pot in his lap. He's got a revolver, okay, and he's putting a round in the revolver, and he's spinning the cylinder. He's aiming it out the tent window. I didn't say nothing. I'm the new guy. I put my stuff away in my bunk. I think, this is kind of crazy. But he did that 2 or 3 times, and one time another guy who was already some time there and knew him, he did that, and he was walking in the tent, and he says, man, you're a crazy son of a gun. He says, what are you doing that for? If you were really tough, you'd put it up to your head. Well, son of a gun, he put it up to his head and pulled the trigger and blew the top of his head off. It flew right onto my mosquito netting. And I'm screaming and hollering. There's nobody there for some kind of help.
Yeah.
So I ran back to the company, okay, and got some help, and of course he was dead. And I thought, holy mackerel. Next day, I look for a priest, okay,
Right.
just to square things up with the good Lord,
Understood.
because I figured there was things to do. So that was my first 3 days in Vietnam.
Tough to be 19 at that time, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. You know what? Sometimes I think that war made me the man I am today, but I do believe the police department saved me from the man I could be today, because it gave me an opportunity to serve the community and give back for the things that happened in Vietnam, yes.
What other memories do you have of Vietnam?
Well, I remember a little bit of chaos. I remember the tragedies of war, killing and watching people die, okay, which never leaves you. It's always there in your soul and in your heart. But I think that, I don't know, like I say, I came back home. One day I'm in the war. I was there in the Tet Offense of '68, which is some of the most intense fighting of that war. I was in the jungles at the time with the company, and they were only bringing and medevacing people out of the jungle that were wounded or injured. They weren't bringing people out of the jungle that were being discharged from the military. I had to spend an extra couple of weeks past my departure date. And another memory, I remember 24 hours after being in the jungle in Vietnam, in the intensity of combat, I'm back in the streets of Oak Lawn, discharged from the military. And you're kind of a lost soul, okay? So I had a friend, female, and I went and visited her. And I remember her telling me, "Is that all you can talk about is Vietnam?" And I thought, to me, you want to be cool, you know, you don't want to bore people. But later in life, I thought, that's the story of the Vietnam veteran. He's here in the intensity of the jungle. He's back home, no time to depart. Like the World War II guys, my dad would tell me, you know, we got on the ship and we spent 30 days coming home with other combat veterans, which gave us a chance to just kind of, not true for the Vietnam guy. And but I compartmentalized that. I met a wonderful woman. I married her, and we never really talked too much about it.
It had to be tough. You were short, and all of a sudden the Tet offenses happened.
Yes.
And now you're stuck there for a longer period.
Yeah.
People don't understand. When we say short, when you get towards the end of your tour, you're sitting there waiting, counting off the days, saying, I'm going home, I'm going home. And all of a sudden, something like this happens.
Keeps you there. You know, we used to carry what we called a short timer stick.
Yep.
Okay, it was a little stick you could carry. It was a status symbol amongst your GIs. And you would cut a little piece off with a number of months that you had left there. You know, you walk away with the hard memories, the memories that scar you maybe a little bit throughout your life. But you know what? You walk away with memories of camaraderie, intensity of purpose. That's the one thing I remember from my military service. When I was stateside, it was kind of polish your boots, make your bed tight, and all of that. And I wasn't real good at that. But when I went to war, that was over with. Okay, it was now survival and doing your duty. Okay, which I felt a certain amount of reward. Right. This is purpose. This is why I'm here on this planet. This is why I'm in the Army. I don't want to get died. I don't want to be on the wall. But I think I look back on my career in the military as a positive overall. I enjoyed it. And I certainly, when I speak as mayor at assemblies for school graduations, I encourage kids to consider that military as an avenue and even a career to build character and to move on in life. There's so many benefits for us veterans that the American people give us, okay? And I've used some of that. In fact, my college education was paid for, okay, by the military as I was a policeman.
Right.
A lot of benefits for serving this country.
You know, they say band of brothers, but you know what? We're kind of more than brothers.
Yes, yes. You know what? Without a doubt. You know, there isn't a day goes by that I don't run into a fellow veteran, whether he identifies himself with a hat or a patch, where we don't shake hands and say, thanks, brother. Okay, and I got a lot of friends, because I'm very active in some of these military organizations, and it is a team. It is a team, and especially the Marines. Okay, I got buddies that are Marines. I tell you what, you never leave the Marine Corps. Okay, so it's a great organization. The military experience is a great thing.
After your honorable discharge, you went into law enforcement. What made you go that route?
You know what? When I like I told you before I went in, I worked for the railroad, and they were skilled training me. Okay, as welder. So when I came back from Vietnam, those jobs was available to me. I went back to the yards, okay, and you know, I some days, and I didn't know why, I just could not go in. I would get to the yard and I'd turn around and go home. I can remember my mother saying, "Terry, you got to go to work." I said, "Mom, I just can't do it. I don't know." Then I think the good Lord steered me to an ad in a newspaper that said the Oak Lawn Police Department was hiring. And I thought to myself, you know what? I can do that job. That job would be rewarding. And I put an application in, and the story is I got hired. Okay.
What are the challenges and the benefits and rewards of being a police officer?
Well, I think that not every person is capable of doing that job. It is a unique job. Probably most every job is unique. But I found that it gave me a certain amount of opportunity to serve my community, to be involved. I like the incitement of it, moments of boredom, moments of terror. Kind of reminded me of the war, Vietnam, being a policeman. It was an extension of that. I like to think I was a good policeman over my career, and my philosophy was using these first, ears, this second, and handcuffs third, okay, which made for a good career. And my career speaks for itself. I served in about every position on the police department, rising to the ranks.
Right. As you rose, were the challenges different as you get to your different ranks?
Yes, of course. You know what? At the street level, you're dealing with the people and the calls and the service. When I became a sergeant, you're still on the street and you're overseeing and supervising that. It's more of a personnel, okay, overseeing. And then as a lieutenant, you're running a shift, okay, midnight shift, whatever shift you're assigned. Again, you're scheduling, you're assigning people cars. It's more of a managerial thing. And then when I became the chief of patrol, okay, I also handled internal investigations, complaints against police officers, and that to report to higher authorities on my results. All of it very rewarding, but I thought to myself on retirement where I enjoyed my job the best. And I have to tell you, I liked the street, okay? I felt I was making a bigger difference with my community than managing police personnel.
Right.
I'd like to think I did both very well, but if I look back, that was where I was most rewarded.
Yeah, people don't realize. They see police officers and the badge, and they don't realize that they're human beings, and they get emotional too about what's happening there.
Yep. You know, one of the things I used to tell my policemen is about just the fact that you're dealing with a human, and that correspondence between the two of you is so important. For example, this may be your fourth accident today that you're investigating, but to that person, to that lady, to that woman, this is a major event in her life that you will never forget. And the way you deal with her, okay, is very important, that human interaction, okay, not just a number in another report. So that's where police work, and a good policeman comes. You still need to understand and sniff out crime, okay? You still have to be able to do some investigative work, okay? But you still need to understand you're a human and you're dealing with humans, and that interaction is very important to make for a good police officer.
Great. What determines your decision to run for mayor?
Well, again, I really enjoy. I was born in Oak Lawn. Okay, I was educated there. I came home from the war. I got married there. Okay, I was very involved in my church, and I wanted to stay involved. I retired. Policemen really retire at early ages. It's a young man's job, and after 34 years on the job, I was 54 years of age. I got the job when I was 21, right out of Vietnam. And I wanted to stay involved in my community in some facet. So I thought I would run for a park district, a commissioner for the park district. I've always said the parks in Oak Lawn are its jewels. Okay, it really makes for the family atmosphere. So I served 6 years there after being elected. And I watched a little bit of chaos going on the village board, the politics of it. And there was one faction, another faction, and it seemed like they were hurting the village, the image of the village, okay? So I thought, well, maybe I could bring some of my skills and run for a trustee's position in my district, which I did, and I won. I served 8 years in that position. And I think during those 8 years, we were able to build a little bit more consensus. We're all here to serve this village. We all have opinions, but we can work these opinions out without arguing and fighting, especially when it's televised and people see that, okay? So I think that was accomplished. And then the mayor, Dr. Sandra Berry, served 2 terms, and she wanted to get back to her practice. And she says, Terry, I would like to retire from this, and I would like to endorse you for mayor. Would you consider it now? I would be disingenuous to tell you that probably down in my soul, it's just my nature, okay? And I says, sure, I'd love to be mayor and not run against you, Dr. Berry, okay, to be there. I understand. You want to win a position, you want to be a mayor, you got to run against somebody and sell your ideas. I thought she was a great mayor. She had all the abilities, and she also had the love of the city, okay? And I thought, sure, I'd like to step in the shoes of the mayor. So she endorsed me, and I ran, okay? And I won, okay? And I enjoyed the first 4 years, okay? And then I thought, well, maybe I'll serve one more term, and I ran again, and I won with 92% of the vote, okay? So, and I enjoy this. I enjoy giving back to my community.
I understand that. We all know the title mayor, but what does that job entail?
Well, I think it entails, first off, I don't run the village, but what I do is make an appointment of the village manager with the consent of the board. And of course, he handles the day-to-day operations of the village with consultations of the board and the mayor on policy and direction. He does the hiring, okay? And my job is to run meetings, okay, and kiss babies, I always call it, okay, and respond to the citizens. You know, I'm in their mind the head of the village, and this morning I was sitting in your parking lot, and I had to respond to 3 emails. So easy to communicate today,
right? Okay,
and it takes a lot of my time just to solve people's problems, whether it be traffic or whatever their complaints are. But their neighbors are not cutting their grass and things like that. But I just field that into the department heads and get it done.
What do you think is your greatest accomplishment as mayor?
Well, I think my greatest compliment is a great police department, a great fire, which was there before I became the mayor. But I understand that my job, first off, is public safety. If I don't keep my city safe, where a mother can walk her kids around the block, I lose it all. Mm-hmm. A pothole is important, but it ain't important if you're not feeling safe in your community. Right. So I encourage my police chief to educate his department the best he can, and we have a phenomenal 109-man police department. I supported and increased the number of police officers. Times have changed since I was a policeman. I always used to say I was a policeman in the good times. It's a little bit tougher to be a good policeman today. But I give them all the technology they need. I give them all the training they need, and I think they do a phenomenal job. And if I were to say what's my greatest accomplishment at this point is maintaining public safety.
Great. Your village, and this is something I really admire, has a 911 memorial at the train station. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Yes, that is, as I understand it, is the biggest pieces of steel, okay, from that tragic site anywhere in this country. And our police department, one of our policemen, okay, realized that there was some steel available, went to the city council in the village and asked if, in fact, we could bring that steel back. There was no vision at the time on what to deal with it, but the village supported it. So we sent a police car and a policeman and hired a semi and brought that pieces of steel back to the village of Oak Lawn. We hired a professional, okay, architect and artist to design that memorial. Actually, that memorial was funded and sponsored by a number of civic organizations in our community, I think, and the village of Oak Lawn. It was about a 4-year project, and I would highly encourage anybody to go by and see that memorial. It sends a chill to your heart on what happened. So we don't ever forget that. For the policemen and the firemen that died, the 2,900 people that died, probably more people than even Pearl Harbor died in that attack. And every year, we on 9/11, we do a memorial service where we all, the police department and the fire department, all gather there, and we do a little ceremony. We usually get some of the grade school choirs to come and sing. So it's a fundamental part of Oak Lawn is that memorial. And it's right at the train station. It's not real visible there to the public because you have to actually get off of 95th Street to go back and look at it. But it's a great tribute to the city.
Yes.
In 911.
It's a great memorial.
Yes.
You have many charitable organization affiliations. What's your most rewarding to you personally?
Well, you mean from a veteran's point of view, the disabled American veterans. I was the commander for 3 or 4 years. And actually, I first was introduced to the disabled American veterans through a friend who was attending a chapter in Hammond, Indiana. Okay, and I would go to meetings there, okay, learning and helping veterans. And I realized that there was a chapter in Oak Lawn, okay, that was kind of dysfunctional. It was only 4 or 5 people that were actually involved in it. I think it was chartered in 1974. So I went back to some of the people that I met there that were from Oak Lawn, Orland Park, our Southwest communities here. And I said, you know, rather than going to Indiana, why don't we join this chapter and maybe we can build it up? So the guy said, well, if you'll be the commander, we'll do it. Okay. So I said, sure. But we had a commander, nice guy. He was a Korean War veteran. He's passed away now. But again, the chapter had kind of dissolved over the years, and it only had a small function. So we brought it back. I got the guys there, and we started educating and lobbying for the benefits these men have deserved serving this country. Many of us come back. We're not aware of the benefits available to us. And the military doesn't do a good job of telling us about that, right? So actually, I'm kind of proud that we built that chapter from almost 3 people to where we grew so big. The VFW, Oak Lawn VFW, could not house us anymore. Our meetings had 100, 200 people, okay, as we were bringing them in. So we moved, thanks to the Elks, in Crestwood. Okay, they provided us with a much bigger facility, so we meet out there every first Friday, okay, at 6:30. And if any veterans are out there that would like to have some assistance in learning and petitioning for the benefits you may have earned while serving this great country, I would encourage you to come out. We have service officers there that can speak with you and help you understand exactly what you might be entitled to. First Fridays of the month.
Thank you. The last question I always ask my guests is, how do you feel about being a vet after all these years?
I'm sorry.
How do you feel about being a vet after all these years?
You know what? I think it might be the most important thing that has occurred in my life, and I didn't even know it at the time. I was drafted, okay? At that time, there was just a blanket draft, okay? They didn't pull out numbers and dates of birth and all that. I remember when I got my draft notice, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should join one of the militaries. But you know what? At that time, all the other militaries were meeting their quota, except for the Marines, okay? Because we all know that where the Marines and the Army were going. So I couldn't get in. So I was drafted. But, you know, I guess I did my duty. And I was encouraged to do my duty at the time by my dad. I'm 18 years old. What do I really know? But today, when I look back after 78 years of life, I think that might be the most formidable 2 years of my life. Like I said, made me the man I am, and I'm so proud of it today, which us Vietnam guys weren't for about 15, 20 years. Yes. I never even told people I was a veteran or served in the war. We came back with some bad reputation, made up by a lot of people, because I never saw a tragedy in Vietnam. I saw tragedy, which is part of war, but nothing criminal. But we came back with accusations of being baby killers and all of that. So I kept my mouth shut until one day they did a parade, 1984, in downtown, okay? And I began to realize that I should be proud of that service. So I will tell you, it's the best 2 years of my life, building me who I am.
I understand that, believe me. Well, I want to thank you, and please accept this pin and this coin for being on my show.
Thank you, sir.
The village of Oak Lawn has another memorial dedicated to our veterans. Originally, it was a World War American Renault 17 light tank that we used for military and memorial celebrations. It was replaced in 1945 by an American M5 Stuart tank from World War II. It's located on 95th Street and Museum Drive, next to the railroad tracks. It has been restored and painted, and is a fine example of the tanks the Army and the Marines fought in World War II.
Jim, if I could add, we also have a war memorial next to the library, which is inscribed in granite of all the men from Oak Lawn who have served, even going back to the Civil War, and gave their life. If you look at that wall, you'll see that more people died in Vietnam than any of the conflicts this country's in. Okay, so if you're looking to talk a memorial, and of course on Memorial Day and Veterans Day, we do a big ceremony there too.
Robert McCormick, the owner of the Chicago Tribune and colonel of the 1st Division in World War I, built the 1st Division Museum called Cantini in Wheaton, Illinois. It goes through the history of the 1st Division from its start through all the wars and conflicts it's been involved in. You can tour the trenches of World War I, view the landings at Normandy beachhead, walk through the jungles of Vietnam, and see what evolved during the war in the Middle East. Outside the building, you can see many armored vehicles, and you can climb on them and observe them. It includes a World War I tank. It is well done, an informative museum. A great place to observe and understand what American soldiers have done to ensure safety and freedom. It's located at Winfield and Roosevelt Road in Wheaton. I know from experience that you'll find, especially if you take younger people, that you bring, it is interesting and a moving experience. Last of all, please remember the men and women who are serving in harm's way in the Middle East right now. In times like these, we need to let them know that we support them and have faith in them. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you again for watching this show. I hope through this show I can give you an understanding of what men and women who served through the years have done. I look forward again to hearing you here again on PHTV4 next month. Honor and respect.